Prime Minister Frendel Stuart says every effort being made to contain crime, a national effort to weed out a seaweed problem, and in sports, the Lady Cavs dynasty at an end.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
Hello, good evening. I'm Lisa Broom. This is the CBC Evening News. Some assurances tonight from this country's Prime Minister Frendel Stuart. He's telling Barbadians there is no cause for alarm over the crime situation in the country. In his address at the 56th Annual General Conference of the Democratic Labour Party yesterday that is, he noted that the authorities are doing everything possible to address the problem. Prime Minister Stuart says he recognizes the effort being made by local lawmen to apprehend criminals. He also says while there's no society that's free from crime, Barbadians must take note that things have changed and the society has become more secular and materialistic.
The precautions we take naturally in other parts of the world, we must now be prepared to take in the Barbados of 2011. At the same time, we cannot afford to let that miscreant element get the psychological upper hand by causing us to surrender to and be paralyzed by fear. We must be as determined to confront criminal behavior as the criminal element is determined to promote it.
But while praising local lawmen, Mr. Stuart says they need more help from the justice system.
Police efforts must be reinforced in the courts of law by the timely dispensation of justice in a manner that ensures that the punishment inflicted fits the crime which was committed. It is important that victims of crime and their families never get the impression that the criminal justice system has lost the capacity to feel their pain and to respond appropriately in the circumstances.
Well, immediately after the evening news, Prime Minister Stuart's address to the DLP's annual conference will be broadcast in its entirety on CBC TV8. Attorney General Adriel Brathwaite says a number of challenges stand in the way of legislation being drafted in the shortest possible time. He highlighted some of the areas of concern during the opening ceremony of a 3-day CARICOM legislative drafting seminar at the Amaryllis Hotel. The Attorney General says legislative drafters are a vital component of any government and must be treated accordingly.
Apart from the obvious need for legislative offices to embrace the use of technology in the production of drafting legislation, there is clearly a need to attract and retain counsel in these offices. This means going beyond the ideal of training counsel. It means looking to adequately remunerate and create other incentives within the civil service to do so. It is recognized that where any legislative office moves towards greater use of technology in the draft of legislation, to ensure that such systems are used efficiently, the skills of all persons within those legislative offices shall need to be consequently revised. Editors and proofreaders will need to be a common part of these offices to ensure that a high quality of uniform legislation is produced.
A national response is being organized to curb the spread of the sargasso weed. This as the algae continues to accumulate on the coasts around the island. Sean Farrell reports.
The weed, which gets its name from the Sargasso Sea, located in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean, is a seasonal occurrence brought to the region by currents. However, scientists cannot explain why it's occurring with such frequency this year. From the north to the south of the island, it has been accumulating in areas like River Bay, The Queen, Skeets Bay and Barclays Park, and it's not letting up.
Judy Thomas and myself, we did a flight with the regional security system just to go out into the central Atlantic, flying due east of Barbados to see the size of the slicks, as we call them, coming towards Barbados, coming towards the Eastern Caribbean islands. And what we can say is that there is quite a bit that is still to get here.
The sargassum becomes a problem in large quantities because it's not pleasing to the eye and produces an unbearable odor when it decomposes. Some people feel if it's not brought under control, it could affect tourism. There is also some concern that it's affecting marine turtles, trapping the hatchlings, which could eventually die. The Coastal Zone Management Unit has been working with the National Conservation Commission and other agencies to help clear some of the beaches, but needs more help.
We want to let the population know so that if there is national mobilization in a cleanup process, that we would want them to be aware they can actually take a drive to the beach, see what it is like, and then we would want to mobilize the younger people to help us in the cleanup, all of the Boy Scouts and Girls Guides and the non-governmental organizations and the DEOs and the constituency councils and anybody who have an interest in the course to assist in at least piling it up. I think those mechanics we have to work out in terms of where we are going to pile it and how it is going to be removed.
Officials of the Coastal Zone Management Unit insist, however, people should not be fearful of the seaweed, as it's very important to the ecosystem, providing food and shelter for many species of fish. It's also regarded as a very good garden fertilizer, once care is taken to wash the salt off.
I think that is something that should be considered for persons that are interested to try it. In addition to that, there have been reports that it has been effective in keeping off the giant African snail in some locations, and persons that may be suffering with that pest may be interested in trying it in their flower gardens as well.
Officials say they will be launching a continuous education and awareness program about the Sargasso weed. They also say they will continue to monitor its movements using the services of the RSS, the Barbados Coast Guard, and the Fisheries Division. Sean Farrell, CBC News.
Official folk at the Bridgetown Fisheries Complex have welcomed moves to significantly improve stalls there, making them more attractive and sanitary. But they're calling for at least one traditional feature to remain once the renovations are completed. Peter Thorne has more.
The initiative started last month and is expected to be completed at the end of September. It will see 4 of the 7 stalls at the Bridgetown complex being outfitted with glass cases for fisherfolk to display their fish. Workmen have already completed work on one stall and have started work on another. There will be no scaling or boning of fish in the stalls, and this will only be permitted in the processing hall. Vendor Esther Beckles has welcomed attempts to improve the stalls, but says the cutting boards in the middle of the stalls earmarked for removal should be kept.
We are not against the glass cases, but the cutting board. So where it's a cut, that's what we are against.
And you believe one should be maintained in the middle?
One should be maintained in the middle of the stall.
And you'll be satisfied?
Yes, sir.
Another vendor, Stephen Small, agrees with these sentiments.
There are too much cutters in the market. You can't display the fish and serve customers if they don't have nowhere to cut them up. So all our main problem is to get the tables stopped in the center of the market.
But you're not against having the stalls improved?
I don't have no problem with how they set up. The system look nice. Our main concern is to get the tables stopped in the center.
Manager of the Bridgetown Market, Keith Henry, met with the fisherfolk this morning, telling them the improvements are to better the industry, to save water, and to make things more sanitary. He believes this would result in more pleasant surroundings and Barbadians buying more fish. Mr. Henry says he's prepared to speak to the authorities about the concerns of the fisherfolk, especially keeping the cutting boards at the center of the stalls. He adds that the complex has a heavy, unsustainable water bill that must be dealt with. CBC understands that the bill of the complex exceeds $150,000 on a monthly basis. Peter Thorne, CBC News.
Another road fatality recorded in Barbados. We'll have that story and more when the evening news returns. Barbados has recorded another road fatality. Dead is 24-year-old Tracy Watson of Fairfield Road, Black Rock. She died just before 1 this morning along the Cummins section of the ABC Highway after a smash-up with another vehicle. Watson, who received multiple injuries, died on the spot. She was in a car driven by Jason Beckles of Welchman Hall, St. Thomas. The vehicle collided with a motor van driven by Tyrone Watts of St. Peter. Watts complained of pains to the back of his head. He had 3 passengers on board, all of whom complained of injuries about their bodies and were taken to the QEH by ambulance. Now, that accident occurred less than 12 hours after another fatal accident in which 65-year-old Eustace Padmore of Lemon Arbor, St. John lost his life. He was struck by a truck driven by Ronaldo Johnson of Hopewell, St. Thomas. That accident occurred at the junction of Green Hill and Lodge Hill, St. Michael around 5:30 yesterday evening. The 2 deaths have brought the number of road fatalities for the year to 16. The Barbados Investors and Policyholders Alliance, BIPA, says they are eagerly awaiting the findings of an interim report on CLICO. That report was made available last evening and is now to be reviewed. During last week's budget presentation, Finance Minister Chris Sinclair revealed that government has made some headway toward resolving the CLICO issue and was planning to meet the judicial manager of CLICO soon. Speaking on last night's People's Business on CBC TV 8, chairperson of BIPA, June Fowler, said the group wants to ensure that what happened to CLICO policyholders does not occur in the future.
It is sad that we've come this far, and now 2011 we're faced with this financial debacle, and we want to ensure that the regulatory organizations within government really follow through and do what they're supposed to do. And then the auditors. Who are the auditors? Who are auditing these companies, and what have they been discovering? Or have they been discovering anything that should have shed some light as to what was happening within CLICO and British American Insurance? So these are some of the things that we want to ensure happens before we shut up shop with BIPA.
Well, the attorney representing the group, Tariq Khan, says there are a range of legal options that BIPA wants to pursue.
A couple of those involve looking at the behavior of the directors, looking at the behavior of the Office of the Supervisor of Insurance. Why were these organizations allowed to continue when there were serious, from our understanding, structural defects in the companies, in the way that the companies promoted the policies, in the way that the policies were sold? So those are 2 areas we want to look at.
Prime Minister Frendel Stuart has been returned unopposed as the president of the Democratic Labour Party. In a poll described by the returning officer as the largest turnout in the party's history of internal voting, 13 people contested the 4 vice president positions. Irene Sandiford Garner was elected first vice president, while Ronald Jones won the position of second vice president. John Boyce and Donville Innes secured 3rd and 4th spots respectively. George Pilgrim maintains the post of General Secretary with Hartley Reid as his assistant. Former banker Sandra Ford is the new treasurer. The problem of unkempt lots is a major concern in Barbados, and even more so in the St. Michael Northeast constituency. Chairman of that constituency council, Percy Morrill, says when people dump on these unused open areas, they not only create an eyesore, but it's very unhygienic.
While some people build their nice homes and all such like and have the well-managed core gardens, next to them you find persons with old cars and mechanics that have 15 cars around the house. Only one will ever come back alive. These kind of things we have seen in Friendship. You've seen it in Jackson, you know. Bushall seems to be now getting a problem with cars parked all over the place in the sanitation truck. Can't get in the area.
Mr. Morrill was speaking during a town hall meeting hosted by the council at the Lawrence T. Gay Memorial School over the weekend. He says the councils are there to take charge of communities, and residents must also take responsibility for the things happening around them.
When we find pockets of poverty in our constituency and area and all, don't wait around till someone fall down and die to come and say that, you know, the government didn't do that, you are afraid didn't do that. What did you do? What did the constituency council do? Who is part of the constituency? This is not, St. Michael Northeast is not Barbados, it's the St. Michael Northeast. So anything in St. Michael Northeast that has a problem and it needs to be fixed, it should be brought to our attention. We are mandated to try and look at that and see how best we can do it.